Hello and welcome to the BSR TV GT Sprint Cup. This is round 1 of Season 2, coming from Silverstone, running on the historic Grand Prix layout, as it's called in iRacing, which is the pre-wing layout, for those that know the circuit reasonably well. And I'm pleased that we're running here because it still includes one of the best corners on any GT or Formula 1 circuit layout, that being the old bridge corner, the very, very fast right-hander, so it's good to see that back. I'm Marcus Narris and I'll be taking you through the action tonight, and action is one thing that we're pretty much guaranteed to see. For those of you who watched this series last year, you'll know that it gets a bit fast, a bit frantic, a bit frenetic. Contact is pretty much de rigueur, and we're certainly in for some enjoyable racing. It's all changed for this season. Rather than running two 25-minute sprint races, which we ran for each session of the championship last year, we're just running a single race for each visit to each track this year. It's a 10-round series, each round consisting of one 40-minute semi-endurance race. I'll go into the reasons for that change in a wee while. An endurance race with an enforced pit stop. The tournament organisers have restricted the fuel that these cars can take, the amount of fuel, which means that everybody participating in the championship will need to pit at least once in every race. And that really is in preparation for where we're going with the BSR TV GT series. Next season, when iRacing obviously introduces driver swaps, the championship will be moving to a full endurance, 1 hour multi-driver format. So we'll have single cars driven by multiple people, which is something I'm certainly looking forward to, and hopefully it'll add a lot to the series. Outside of the changes to the championship, we've seen a number of changes to the actual cars themselves and the format within iRacing. For those of you that don't know, iRacing are getting very, very close to their goal of properly performance balancing the GT3 cars that they've got available on the service. So what we've seen is a large balance of performance in the last couple of weeks for the BMW Z4 GT3, the McLaren MP412C, and of course the RUF 12R. What that ultimately means is that they behave slightly more realistically when up against their real-world counterparts. The RUF is very, very fast through the tight twisty sections. Obviously it's balanced and built that way. It's got a very narrow track, short wheelbase, and it's very nimble and nippy, and we're starting to see that represented fairly realistically now within the GT3 cars within iRacing. The McLaren seems to have the legs on everything. It's very fast, and that bears out its characteristics in the real-world GT racing. If you can get it out of a corner quickly, it will outpace pretty much anything in a straight line. The BMW has had its torque remapped, which has led to a significant handling change within BMW. Last season, the iRacing build of the BMW was under-torqued. BMW, of course, running a flat-six engine as they do. It was very forgiving when you put the throttle down. This season, however, in the BMW Z4 GT3, what we've seen is a more realistic torque curve, where if you get a little bit heavy on the throttle, it'll get very, very loose at the back very, very quickly, even at low rev range. So for those who are fans of Formula 1, you would have heard the guys talking all season about how much torque and how difficult the cars can be to control coming out of the corners. And that's even with low revs and far down the range. So the torque really becoming a key factor in driving that BMW. The result of that is that we've seen a real mix in the practice session that I was watching a little bit earlier on. The top three were three different cars. We had a BMW, a McLaren, and a RUF all represented in the top three. So hopefully this season, with the great work that iRacing have done, we'll start to move away from a BSR GT Cup that is dominated pretty much solely by BMWs. The McLarens and the RUFs will certainly be a lot more competitive this season. So in terms of attendees this season, it's some of you will notice some of the familiar names. I'll run through the full grid in a moment as the guys form on their formation lap. We've got just about a minute or so to go before the end of this pre-race warm-up session. There's a lot of familiar faces, quite a few new faces, but it's great to see Ruben Velasco on board, last year's champion. Ruben led the Playful Bet Overgaming team to a 1-2 in the Drivers' Championship. many of the guys that you would have seen from last year are back, and it's great to see. It just speaks volumes to the popularity of this series. A series that's been so popular tonight, indeed, that we're having to run 2 split races. We had more than 65 drivers turn up to qualify for this race. We fit as many of them as we possibly could do in this this top split, if you like, feature race, the race that we're carrying here on BSR TV here on YouTube tonight. But there is another race going on for some of the guys that didn't get on quite so well in qualifying. So if there are a few names missing that you don't see, that's where they are. It's not necessarily that they didn't turn up. The popularity of the series is proving such that it looks like for certainly the foreseeable future we'll be running multiple races on a single night at the same time, which is great to see, and is going to lead to some very, very healthy competition. And critically makes qualifying crucial. If there's a potential for you not qualifying for the main feature race, people are going to have to concentrate a little bit more on how they go about the business of qualifying. So warm-up's over, the cars are starting to form now behind the pace car to take the pace lap. While they do that, I'll take the opportunity just to walk you through the grid. Before I do, I'd just like to say a quick thanks to all of our Iberian friends that join us tonight, who continue to challenge my brain with some of the names. So please forgive me, guys, if I mispronounce anybody. It's not intentional, it's just a complete lack of ability on behalf of the commentator. So leading the way in the first qualifying session of the evening is Ashley Sutton. Ashley did a fantastic job getting that number 19 machine onto the front of the grid, running in a 1:39.840. Not far behind him is Kiosoglu Nestoras. I told you I was going to struggle with some of the names. Who is in second place, and it's great to see a new entrant to the championship doing so well. It's brilliant to see. New drivers coming into the championship and doing a great job. In third place is Thomas Sabo. Fourth is Oki Stokenberger, who we saw running very, very strong at the start of last season. Kind of disappeared, to be honest with you, a little bit as the season wore on. In fifth place in the 007 machine is Christian Tanahato. Christian ran with us last season, and it's great again to see him back. He's running in a reasonably popular car. The Rough seems to be pretty much dominating at the top. In terms of cars, Ashley Sutton and Kiosoglu Nestoras are in BMWs, but the next 3 cars behind them on the grid, all the way back to Christian Tanahato, who I've just mentioned, are running in the Rough 12Rs, so it'll be interesting to see how they get on. Sixth place is Julian Familiaris, easy for me to say. Seventh is series and touring car regular Stefan Hug in a very lovely looking McLaren MP4 12C. Those who are regular viewers of this, and I do read the comments that I get put under the videos, I'm very, very aware that I have a completely unhidden bias towards the McLaren, and long may that continue. Don't expect that to change, so it's great to see a McLaren running in the top 10. In 8th place we've got Thomas O'Leary in another Rough. Thomas, a great effort from him qualifying just ahead of Michael Hall, who is in 9th place in the BMW Z4 GT3. Michael Stephen from Team Extreme, a guy that we saw do very, very well in the championship last year, and in fact finished 3rd place in the championship. A little bit lower down than maybe he would have wanted. He's running in 10th place in his Team Extreme BMW Z4, ahead of Alain Tessier, Chris Taylor, Ivan Fernandez, Richard Wilde and Nigel Owen, who we saw put in some great performances in that McLaren MP4 12C, specifically and memorably at Montreal last season, rounds out the top 15. So the guys are just making their way around the circuit now, and just as I look at the McLaren MP4 12C of Nigel Owen going through Club Corner, what is now the first turn on the Grand Prix circuit here at Silverstone, but given this historic layout, it's about 2/3 of the way around the circuit, and the run up the hill into the very, very, very fast left-hander and then the very fast right-hand bridge really does give the guys an opportunity to run up close to the car in front and look to get themselves in a position to make a move going into the complex, and certainly going around Luffield is a really popular overtaking spot, again, as fans of Formula 1 may have seen as Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso were going at it hammer and tongs, passing each other almost lap after lap going into that corner. So Ashley Sutton now will start to just slow the field down a little bit, just start to take it easy, just make sure that everybody is properly aligned and is properly stacked up. It's a long grid here. We go all the way back to 38th place. So there's a lot of cars, and as we can see, Sutton's doing a great job of controlling the pace now. And he floors it. Away we go. Round 1 of season 2 of the BSR TV GT Cup Series is underway, and Sutton gets a great drive, gets the throttle down early, manages to leave pretty much everybody in his wake. Just behind him, quite a way behind him now, is Kiyosoglu Nestoras in the BMW. Oki Stokenberger in the Porsche has managed to jump himself around Thomas Sabo, as has Christian Tanahato. So Tanahato and Stokenberger get around Sabo. He's not had a great start, and speaking of great starts, Stefan Huger's got away pretty good. He's got ahead of Julian Familiaris, who's lost a couple of spots, and Stefan Hug in that number 24 McLaren MP412C is catching the battle ahead of him. Tamas Szabo in the roof trying to recover and getting quite close to the back of Christian Tanahato there, and just ahead of Tanahato, Kiyosoglu Nestoras has been passed by a charging Oki Stokenberger. So Stokenberger is really letting these guys have it at the start of this race as he goes through club and runs up the hill. He's got Kiyosoglu Nestoras right on his tail as they thunder down towards Bridge, and they'll take this fast right-hander at Bridge, and then it's all over the brakes. The BMW especially good on the brakes around here, into the tighter, twisty section, the stadium section, as we head into Luffield. I've just noticed unfortunately we've lost Jose Vergara. So Jose Vergara, one of the top runners from last season, has got some connection problems by the looks of it, and we've just dropped him. So it's a real shame we're not going to be able to see what he can do in this race. But as Ashley Sutton finishes the first lap of this first round of the second season of the BSR TV GT Cup, he leads by over 1.5 seconds. That is a real result of the fighting that was going on behind him. As just behind him we see, it looked to me like it was we had somebody running very wide through the first turn there. It looks like it was Tamas Szabo in the roof, getting a little bit out of shape, and it's certainly brought him into play. He's got Thomas O'Leary now right behind him, chasing him down the hangar straight as they run down towards Stowe Corner, and O'Leary is very close. Just behind O'Leary there's a real train of cars forming. Julian Familiaris in the BMW Z4 has got Michael Stephen in the Team Extreme machine, the green and white machine, and Michael Hall right behind him. Michael Stephen in fact is very close to the back of Julian Familiaris, and he'll certainly be looking to get a good run out of club here, so he can get close to him running up the hill, so he can try to make a move going into the tight twisty stadium complex. As we said, that really does, along with the end of the hangar straight turning right into Stowe, represent the best opportunity you have for overtaking in a GT car around here. Silverstone, a great circuit for these types of cars, having lots and lots of very fast, very downforce hungry corners, and these GT cars with the front splitters and large rear wings. As we've got a problem up front, Ashley Sutton's dropped it at the front there. He's gone round, I think unassisted. I can't imagine that anybody got into him. He was so far away from everybody else. So if I have just a quick look back at that, yeah, and as Ashley Sutton, as we mentioned at the start, this BMW Z4 GT3 has had its torque realigned, and it's caught Ashley Sutton out. Ashley Sutton has got on the gas just that little bit too quickly, and it's spun him round, and he's not going to be delighted with that at all. He recovers the car in 10th position, so Ashley Sutton drops 10 places in about 7 seconds. That little adventure cost him, and he's going to be certainly have the bit between his teeth now. Those that have seen Ashley race in the various BSR TV series that we run here on iRacing and stream live on YouTube will know that he's a take no prisoners kind of guy. Those of us that are lucky enough to see him race in the UK in the Formula Ford Championship supporting the British touring cars in real life will know that he's that kind of guy in real life too. A couple of very strong overtaking manoeuvres from Sutton this season have really brought him to the attention of many people in that series, and he's already dispatched Alain Tessier and again, those who watched the series last year will know that Tessier is no slouch. You know, he can push on. He's a reasonably quick pedaler, but all eyes now, I think, are going to be on Ashley Sutton and the charge he's going to have to make through the field to try and get back towards the front, where Oki Stokenberger, who had a terrific start, a great first lap Stokenberger, as we said, he went from fourth on the grid to second in just the course of the first lap, now inherits the lead. And as we come to the end of the third lap, and Stokenberger runs towards the start-finish line to begin lap 4 of this race, he definitely pulling away at front. He had a lead of just under a second. He's now running 2.8 seconds ahead of Thomas O'Leary. O'Leary, who we featured earlier on, leads a mini train of roofs at the moment. There's himself, Christian Tanahato and Thomas Sabo, all in fairly close proximity, being chased down now by Casilio Listeris, who we saw start in second place on the grid, ahead of Julian Familiaris, who was leading a little chain of cars that included Michael Stephen and Michael Hall. Stephen has fallen back a little bit into the clutches of Michael Hall, and Michael Hall in fact looks up the inside of Michael Stephen going into Stowe, but Michael Stephen says no thank you very much sir, closes the door, doesn't really give Michael Hall very much room. He didn't need to be honest. Michael Hall hadn't managed to get himself alongside into the braking zone there going into Stowe, so certainly put some manners on Michael Hall. Nothing wrong with that. He's just making it very, very clear that he's not going to make it easy for him to get past at all, and why should he? So numerous battles throughout the field. It's worth noting that despite the fact that this is a semi-endurance race, I don't think it's fair enough to call it an endurance race, only 40 minutes, these guys aren't driving like it. First to 19th place at the end of 3 laps is separated by 10 seconds, so just about, in fact, bang on half the field separated by only 10 seconds. In fact, the furthest runner down on the lead lap, the car you can assume is the furthest up that hasn't had any kind of problem, it was only running 35 seconds behind, so it's fairly tightly packed at the front, with the exception of our current leader, Oki Stokenberger. Stokenberger now leads by 3 seconds over Thomas O'Leary, and just to put that into context, Stokenberger is running pretty consistently in the 140s. His last lap was a 142.99, as opposed to Thomas O'Leary, who's running mid 140s. His last lap was 140.578. So certainly Stokenberger is pulling ahead. That's been pretty consistent actually, looking at the lap chart, pulling away to the tune of kind of 3.5 tenths of a second pretty much every lap, and if he can keep this going as we head towards 8 minutes of this race completed, he'll want to get himself into a position where he can be a little bit comfortable with his pit stop. We've not really spoken about the pit stops yet. They're going to be obviously a key element in this race. These cars, being GT cars, all have rev limiters, all have pit speed limiters, so there's no issue from that point of view. There shouldn't be any issues with anyone speeding once they're in the pits, but obviously with a tricky pit lane entry like we've got here at Silverstone, where you can really charge towards that commit line, really charge to the beginning of the pit road, it's going to be key for guys to get in as quickly as they can, while still managing to get the car slowed down and get the limiter on before they cross the line. Anyone who's caught overspeeding after they've crossed that line, of course, will be hit with a penalty. So these guys are going to want to get in, get stopped, get serviced and get out as soon as possible. And if he can, the more and more of a lead he can build, the more comfortable Stokenberger will be. He'll have that slight margin for error where he can just take his time and just make sure that he gets everything right. That said, on the last lap, the trend was reversed. Thomas O'Leary's taken a couple of tenths of a second out of Oki Stokenberger. So it's levelling off a bit. I think this race everybody's starting to find their true pace just a little bit. Everyone's getting comfortable with the car. One of the big changes we had with these cars was the introduction of yet another revised tyre model, as iRacing strive to make the virtual cars as realistic as possible. And we are seeing actual tyre degradation and performance degradation on the service for the first time in a long time. As Ashley Sutton has a look up the inside of Michael Hall going into club, cuts the corner a little bit there. He'll have to be careful, he doesn't want to incur the wrath of the stewards. The drivers have been told that they need to be very, very careful in cutting club corner. You can cut on the inside quite significantly. iRacing will allow you to get away with that the way they've modelled this circuit. As Sutton dives up the inside of Hall and gets it wrong on the exit and gets clipped. Well, again, maybe a little bit of impatience from Ashley Sutton there. It was a bit of a lunge up the inside of Michael Hall, and all Michael Hall has done there is got on the gas, as you would certainly expect somebody to do. In the normal way, he's not been particularly aggressive, and because Sutton was wrestling with his car, trying to get it under control, trying to get it stopped, having made the entrance to that corner very, very, very narrow, he was very much under speed, and I think that caught Hall out slightly, and it looks to me like he has just ever so slightly tagged the back of Sutton, but certainly no blame can be apportioned to Michael Hall for that one. Sutton may have been better served just staying very, very close to him and looking down the inside, going into the next complex of turns, and maybe look to get the move done down into Luffield. But more dramas for Ashley Sutton, back in 17th now, continues to turn very, very quick laps when he's in free air and not getting involved in anybody else's front or rear bumpers. We also saw a bit of an issue there. I think we lost Thomas O'Leary pretty much at the same time as I was looking at Sutton. I'm going to go back and have a quick look at that myself. I don't know if necessarily we're going to follow. Yeah, and in fact he's dropped it on his own, and it's a bit of a shame. But Thomas O'Leary has decided that that's enough for him this evening, and again it looks like he's just dropped it on the gas. He's gone far too quickly through that corner, and unfortunately he's collected Thomas Szabo as a result of that spin. Szabo continues, but it looks to me like he's carrying a little bit of damage there on that roof. Put some manners on Michael Stephen as well, Szabo, as he recovers. So there's certainly no quarter arse or giving in any of this. And yeah, Szabo's running okay. He's thundering along okay now by the looks of it. So lost a few places. Down in 8th place now, Thomas Szabo. So he might have some handling issues with that roof. I'll keep an eye on his lap times over the next couple of laps and give you guys an idea of where he finds himself in terms of ultimate race pace. So all change at the front again, with the exception of Oki Stokenberger, who continues to enjoy a bit of a romp out in the countryside. To be honest, he just goes through Stowe for the 8th time. We're on lap 8 of this race now, just coming up to 13 minutes raced. Stokenberger leads by 6.3 seconds, or certainly at the start of this 8th lap that was the gap, ahead of Kiosoglu Nesteras. I'm going to struggle with that one for the rest of the night, so I'm just probably going to call him Kio because it's easier. Julian Familiaris is in 3rd place. Michael Stephen, who we said had started uncharacteristically low, 10th place, has managed to fight his way up into 4th place, and that's typical of the kind of gung-ho, no holds barred, no prisoners taken driving style that we expect to see from Michael Stephen. Alain Tessier has made his way up to 5th place. Ivan Fernandez is 6th place. That top 6 being covered now by less than 10 seconds. In 7th place is Nigel Owen in the McLaren, ahead of Thomas Szabo, who we see continue to struggle, and it wouldn't surprise me if I go back and just look at Szabo in real time. He's got mirrors full of Michael Booth behind him, so Szabo definitely struggling in terms of pace. In fact, yeah, his last lap, his first clean lap after the incident was a 141.3 as opposed to a 140.4 as his fastest lap. So that contact with the spinning Thomas O'Leary looks like it's costing Thomas Szabo somewhere in the region of a second a lap. And as I said, he now has a hard charging Michael Booth right behind him. Booth, a very experienced, a very regular GT racer on iRacing. For those who keep up with some of the GT racing leagues, pretty much all of them include Michael Booth. As we say that, just coming into stuff, if we just look back a bit there, Ashley Sutton, it looks like he's on the charge again, and Indeed, he's just put a move on Jeroen Kaiser, and Jeroen has to get well out of the way, and Sutton charges past him. So Sutton back up now to 11th position, chasing Daniel Andres down for the 10th place as Sutton tries to get back into that top 10. However, he does now find himself some 14 seconds or so behind the leaders. So with his two little excursions, as we see Sutton try and go around the outside into bridge, that's going to be a very brave move if he can carry it off, and indeed he does. Daniel Andres gives him some room. Sutton gets the car stopped. That's just ahead of him. It looks like Tessier has gone off just ahead of him. Indeed it was Alain Tessier for JCL Sim Racing. I'll have another quick look at that. Again, it looks like we've got another victim of overuse of the loud pedal. Tessier looks to be running pretty much in fresh air. He's certainly got no one within 10 car lengths in front or behind of him. And yep, absolutely, he's just a little bit too aggressive with the loud pedal. Spins the car around. In fact, I think that was more a consequence of he hadn't finished braking and turning before he got on the accelerator there, so I don't think he overgassed it and spun himself around. I don't think he had the car properly straightened up going through the turn there, and that's cost him big time. So Tessier now back to 12th position. He was running as high as 5th place earlier on in the race. So a few guys making a few mistakes here, and I can speak from experience. If you try and drive these cars to a lap time delta, which is what a lot of these guys are doing. Apologies for that, drink of water. A lot of these guys have their fastest lap up on the screen and will try and hit it every lap. That's no longer possible in these cars. It was very possible last season, as we see someone go bouncing across the grass there right in front of Alain Tessier. That was Daniel Andres, who we saw last lap being taken by Ashley Sutton, went bouncing across the grass in the Maggots Beckett's complex, and he's managed to get back on the road. He looks like he's pretty much gathered it together, and he's off on his merry way. No harm, no foul, I don't think, by the looks of that. The closest battle on the circuit, and as I say that, it's huge contact earlier on. I didn't see it live, I'm just seeing it now. Michael Booth, it looks like, I don't know if we picked it up on the live feed there, Michael Booth has had it coming together with the hard defending Thomas Sabo. Difficult to say who's at fault there. I'll go back and have a look at that one at the end of the race, but it looks like Michael Booth has managed to more or less recover. He's still showing as running in 8th place. We've pretty much completely lost Thomas Sabo, but Booth is that rough of Michael Booth, well, it's looking, if you excuse the pun, very, very rough indeed. Yeah, it's looking very bent, very broken, so we'll absolutely keep an eye on that to see whether that's going to affect Michael Booth's pace. What that has meant is Ashley Sutton, him of the rotating BMW Z4 GT3, has made his way back up to 7th place. Again, he's still running about 15 seconds or so behind the leaders, or leader, but such is Oki Stokenberger's lead in this race. Sutton finds himself only 5 seconds or so off the podium, and only 7 or 8 seconds out of 2nd place. And with Sutton's raw pace, we know that that's certainly a gap that he could make up if he absolutely needed to. So back at the front again, Oki Stokenberger continues his nice, comfortable Tuesday evening jaunt through the Buckinghamshire and Northamptonshire countryside. In fact, he takes the opportunity to pit. So as we hit just coming up to half race distance, Stokenberger, the leader, is in the pits, and this is something I've been looking forward to for quite tragically for quite a while, since it was announced that this season would be carrying pit stops. Stokenberger deciding that the best tactic is to pit early, and he's tumbling down the field as you would expect. This is going to be an added challenge for your commentator here. I'll try and keep abreast of exactly what is going on in terms of pit stops. Along with Stokenberger in the pits, we've got Jeroen Kaiser and Daniel Alencar taking the opportunity to pit their cars. Daniel Andres comes in as well. So what we'll see over the next couple of laps is I think a real gaggle of cars making their stops. Obviously the time that they can compete is dictated to a certain extent by the restrictions on the fuel levels these cars can carry. But I'll certainly try and keep everybody in the loop as much as physically possible. The challenge we have here at Silverstone is that the start-finish line is a long way back. For those who remember people winning races by serving drive-through penalties on the last lap, will know that the start-finish line here at the historic Silverstone is right near the start of the pit lane in relative terms. So Stokenberg was still classified first as he crossed the start-finish line there to begin what for him is his 12th lap. So we'll have to see how this shakes out as we go through the race. That said, next into the pits, I guess, would be Kio Nesteras, running in second position in the number 1 Z4 GT3. And indeed, as I say that, he dives into the pit lane. A good time to do that. He was coming up on lap traffic. Michael Stephen continued through. So Michael Stephen now takes the race lead. There is a BMW in front of him running on the circuit, that being the number 32 machine of Paul Searle, who is a lap down. So Stephen now classified in first place. Kio Nesteras just now, a long pit lane here, comes to a halt and starts his refueling. He has got for company in the pits, actually Sutton in the garage in front of him, so this will be a good one to watch, see who can get out ahead. I think Nesteras has got enough of a time advantage. Indeed, he finishes his service and away he goes. Just behind him, leaving the pit lane, is Nigel Owen. I expect that we'll see Sutton leave soon. Michael Hall and Noel Lundberg also taking the opportunity to complete their pit stops. Michael Booth also maybe trying to get some of the damage off that car repaired. There's an opportunity to get a little bit of damage repaired while you're sat there refueling. Also takes the opportunity to pit. So admittedly, we are a little bit jumbled up by pit stops, but the order as we run now, as we have about 18.5 minutes of this race remaining, Michael Stephen leads in the number 305, that green, white and black BMW Z4 GT3, from Ivan Fernandez by 2.5 seconds. Kio Nesteras came out of the shake-up in the pits in third position. Now, of interest, we've had a complete lap. I'm trying to see, and I'm looking down the list here to see where everybody has come out, and I'm struggling to see Oki Stokenberger. Stokenberger is, wow, he's running down in 11th place. So we'll keep an eye on what happens with the update of the lap times as they come through and complete yet another lap, what will be the 13th lap of the race. Obviously there are pit stops going on all over the place here. So Stokenberger now is running in 4th place. Indeed, he has a lead over Kirsoglu Nesteras of about 7 seconds. So it looks like, if you take into account the times these guys spent in the pits and in laps and out laps and so on and so forth, Stokenberger is running pretty much 7 seconds ahead of Kio Nesteras, which is where he was running beforehand. So it looks like situation normal. We got a couple of non-stoppers running very, very strongly, of course. Ivan Fernandez now leads this race in the number 26 BMW Z4 GT3. About 3 seconds behind him, he's got Michael Stephen, and in fact, it's further back than that. Stephen, it looks like, has taken his pit stop. Fernandez still hasn't. So on the road, Ivan Fernandez is still our leader, despite having not taken his pit stop. And I'm fairly certain we'll see him in either this time round or the next time round. So realistically speaking, and again we'll see how it shakes out on the road, as indeed Ivan Fernandez comes in to pretty much complete that pit stop cycle. So as we are on the road, Stokenberger still leads. Stokenberger just now coming into the Luffield complex to end lap 14 and begin lap 15. Stokenberger will certainly be the first of the inverted commas front runners to cross the start-finish line. It looks like Tessier has come out of the round of pit stops pretty strongly. Again, I'll make sure that everybody is updated fully when my timing screen updates. It's always a challenge commentating on a race with pit stops. I've Had to do it a few times, and it's never quite as much fun as you think it's going to be going into it. So on the timing screen, Fernandez is still classified as in the lead, but as we discussed, that's by virtue of the fact that the timing line is a long way up the pit lane, and these guys usually cross it on their way into the pits rather than after they've had some time sitting and waiting. Oki Stokenberger is running second, ahead of Kio Nestoras. So I think the top three is going to be Stokenberger, Nestoras, and Julian Familiaris has done a cracking job through the pit stop window. He's got himself what will be a real third place. He's running fourth on the road now, but I think in realistic terms that's going to be third place. So a few people moving around by virtue of the pit stops. Nigel Owen, it looks like he's going to be making his way up into fifth place, so again a cracking drive from him. So as that all shakes out, what it means is we've got a great battle on the circuit for what is effectively second place in the race. We've got Kio Nestoras and Julian Familiaris within 0.2 of a second of each other, and indeed Nestoras having a big look down the inside of Familiaris there as they go through the left-hander that we've seen catch so many people out tonight, so many people getting on the gas far too quickly there and really causing themselves a problem. But Familiaris is all over the back of Kio Nestoras. I'm going to give up trying to pronounce his first name. I've decided, executive decision. And I don't think he's going to be able to keep Familiaris behind him for very much longer. As indeed, almost an Alonso type move there. It was a bit of a I hope you're going to get out of the way, Kio, because I'm coming through move from Julian Familiaris there. He decided that he was going through regardless, and luckily Kio saw him coming and decided to leave his turn in suitably late, certainly late enough that Julian Familiaris could get all the way up the inside of him, and despite Familiaris running a little bit wide on the exit there, the move is done and it's clean. Certainly I think at least 40% down to good driving from Nestoras in that number one BMW Z4 GT3. I don't think we can give Julian all the credit for that one. Michael Stephen, who we saw having a very strong run, is now up to fourth place. He's being chased by Nigel Owen, and he's being hassled very hard by Nigel Owen. Nigel Owen in the McLaren, and as we said earlier on, if you can get a clean exit in this McLaren, you can really do some damage in the quick parts of the circuit. That BMW Z4 GT3 is traction limited now, and as I say that, Nigel Owen has a little look up the inside going into bridge. Certainly Michael Stephen leaves him enough room, but Nigel Owen maybe not feeling brave enough to try that manoeuvre up into bridge, and I certainly don't blame him. I wouldn't want to try and throw one up the inside of somebody there, specifically someone who's as proficient as defending as Michael Stephen has proven to be in over the seasons. But they're still very, very close as they make their run towards what is the start-finish line here, running past what is now called the National Pits. To begin the 17th lap of this race, we've got a little over 12 minutes remaining, so this is certainly a battle worth keeping an eye on. There's a couple of blinding battles. Michael Stephen certainly appears to be holding up Nigel Owen, and Nigel Owen is going to be wanting to get a shift on as they go into the Magus Beckett's complex there, and it's as close as it can get. Nigel Owen fighting to hold on to the back end of that McLaren MP4 12C, and he's going to want to be getting up the road because literally right behind him is Ashley Sutton, as Owen and Michael Stephen fight going into Stowe, and Michael Stephen has to cede that place to Nigel Owen into the very fast right-hander of Stowe. As we said, get the drive out the corner, and that McLaren is lightning in a straight line, and he proved that running down the hangar straight. He just drove past Michael Stephen, and Michael Stephen really didn't have very much of an answer for the superior straight line speed of that McLaren MP4 12C in front of him. So Nigel Owen wrestles fourth place away from Michael Stephen, but going into this twistier part of the circuit, this is where Stephen will come to his own, but he's going to have to go into defence mode because Ashley Sutton's trying to go around the outside of him again, and Ashley Sutton gets it done and stands on the brakes. Now we saw Sutton get collected trying to brake too hard and getting the car sideways in there, and he manages to gather it all together, puts a little bit of the frighteners on Nigel Owen in front of him, but Owen tries to resist, but Sutton forces Owen out wide. There's contact on the exit, not very much, no more than a little bit of a kiss on the panel, but it's enough to force Nigel Owen to bail out of the turn-in coming out of that final corner. Then he was heavy on the lock, and just that little bit of contact, he thought, no, I'm going to get out of this, I'm not going to keep this lock on, knowing that the ultimate consequence would be that he wouldn't make the exit of the corner and would end up on the grass. But that's certainly a better option to take than Steve side